Disasters like Bhopal gas tragedy, Air India flight crashes that have happened, they have all taken place because people in charge were not sleeping enough.
Sleep deprivation.
US Army veterans who had gone to Afghanistan, they come back with PTSD. PTSD patients who were not sleeping well enough, they couldn't recover through their emotional trauma at all. All the light that we're surrounded by at night is impacting sleep. A TV remote. Now a TV remote has a very small light in it, a Wi-Fi router.
Even the AC light for that matter.
The AC light from your radio, your Wi-Fi's, even from sleep trackers actually.
So sleeping in dark is good for your gut health.
Having a light dinner might affect sleep negatively. A lot of people like to have green tea before bed. Not a good idea.
Beatles got one of its songs in sleep, and I think you were also mentioning about how the idea of Google came up in sleep.
Scandinavian countries, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, instead of going towards an antibiotic when there is an illness, they first go to sleep. So you can watch Netflix at night, enjoy it, and still fall asleep. There has never been proof that you need 8 hours sleep.
Hi everyone, welcome to yet another interesting episode of Uncharted Conversations. I'm your host Natasha Singh, and today the guest that we have, I think this is the need of the hour, to be very honest. The guest that we have today, she is a sleep coach and a sleep educator, and she helps and coaches people to get a really good night's sleep with habit formation and belief reform, which actually makes your dependency on medicines and supplements go really less. And I'm sure that after listening to this, you would want to know everything about sleep. So let's dive into the conversation. Hi, Chhavi. Welcome to Uncharted Conversations, and thank you so much for being a part of this.
Thank you so much for making me a part of this conversation today. And I'm thrilled to be here. Very excited to dive deep into this conversation.
How important or how much of a myth it is that 8 hours sleep is good for the body?
When we fixate on a number, when we're trying to achieve a numerical goal, in that process, you spoil the relationship that you have with your health. There's always a likelihood that that can happen. So, for example, if you speak to a person who strives to achieve 8 hours of sleep every night, on the days when he or she is not able to achieve 8 hours, he or she will have a certain disappointment, that low mood, disappointment. Generally, people who fixate on getting 8 hours of sleep, as soon as they wake up, they check their sleep tracker, and then when they look at the number that it's just 7.5 hours, 6 hours, they feel a sense of disappointment or that they haven't achieved a goal. And that's just not how it's supposed to be with sleep. It's so funny and so strange, the number of people who fixate on getting 8 hours, where there has never been proof that you need 8 hours. It has always been that you need 7 to 9 hours. That number is going to change every single day. And even during our sleep coaching programs, where we are looking at that duration every day out of 35 days, 8 hours gets covered on just 10 out of 30 days. So on the rest 20 days, it's 7.5 hours, 7 hours, 15 minutes, or some days it's 9.5. So actually, 8 hours of sleep is not required by your body on a day-to-day basis. It's important to not fixate on one number as long as your sleep is within that 7 to 9 hour bracket. That's what is most important.
So what I hear when you say that is that we should stop trying so hard to sleep and actually surrender to sleep rather than trying very hard for it.
Absolutely how it should be. And when you try too hard to fall asleep or to sleep in a certain way, it becomes counterproductive, because as soon as you are trying hard, what happens to your brain is that its nervous energy increases. So within the brain, there is an arousal system. When you are feeling awake and alert, you are at a high arousal state. So when you think that you want to sleep, or when you think, oh no, I'm still awake and I'm not able to sleep, instantly your arousal level goes up. Brain is awake, alert. The only reason they stay awake is because they're thinking they are awake and sleep hasn't come yet. So the ideal approach is exactly what you mentioned: surrender, detachment, and letting the body find its own route to sleep. नींद आती है, हम नींद करते नहीं हैं. And that's exactly how we must maintain that relationship with sleep in general.
Right. But owing to the kind of lifestyle that we are living in, our addiction to our smartphones, right? I feel that dependency has also made us pretty much resistant to कि नींद आ रही है तो चलो सो जाते हैं, right? I would want you to give some takeaway for the audience that, for example, if they have to detach themselves from the sleep or get in this whole surrender thing that, okay, you know what, I let my body take over and let it rest. If any small one thing that you think people can practice in their daily life, which is like a small step, nothing too big, but which can really help the way they sleep.
Like bedtime, which is usually 1 hour before you actually fall asleep. There's also a wind down window, which is around 3 hours before you sleep. Most people who struggle with sleep at bedtime, they will also struggle with winding down in general. So 3 hours before their sleep time, they would still be very busy doing important work, firefighting, or, keeping the wind down time for high stress, high energy activities. So when you start to do that, where your cortisol would be higher, where you're really supposed to be your best, whether it's a meeting, whether it's, showing up for a social event, when that happens, because you're denying your body the time to wind down, at bedtime, it's not going to be relaxed enough. So it's very important to firstly allocate wind down time for low energy activities, activities that are more monotonous, that keep you engaged, and they don't increase your stress levels the way that important work would be doing. So that wind down time window would be a great takeaway for anybody who's trying to work on sleep. I think another really important point in general for somebody who has more bandwidth to work on sleep and their relationship with it is to also explore how much do you trust your body with taking care of itself. Because individuals who generally don't trust their body with sleep, they'll be they'll be very controlling of their lifestyle. For example, they'll set multiple alarms to wake up in the morning because they know they don't wake up with one. Or they'll be hyper aware about their pre-sleep routine, bedtime. I have to sleep. So this is also a sign that you're not really trusting your body with executing processes that it does anyway. And that would also reflect in the way that, you eat or you exercise. Like a lot of people who don't have that trust with their own body, they also are very particular about their diet. That you only have to eat very healthy food 7 times a week. You don't have to eat junk. You have to stay on on a certain routine forever. So these could also be signs that you're not really fully in sync with your body and you're not probably trusting it enough. So that could also be an area where if you just direct your energy, that can bring you more insight and also improve sleep in the long run.
So what you said, it made me think that, for example, people, and especially the kind of distances that we have to travel for our jobs, right? Typically people, reach their homes by 8:30, right? And then they have to get up early. And even in that, I'm not even talking about people with no responsibilities as such. I'm also talking about there can be parents who is not getting the homework done, but they have to figure out about khana kya banna hai, or maybe spend quality time with their kids, where you need that kind of energy, right? They might play with their kids. In such kind of lifestyle, how can then one wind down? How they should gradually move from these activities to a space where they are like, okay, no, now I'm feeling relaxed, but this is how I can relax, you know. For example, I reach my home 8:30. Then I need some entertainment. So I'll sit in front of my TV, I'll talk to my mom, and then you know how binge watchers go, right? But I feel even that time that I was watching something, and from there to suddenly go in that, now I'm feeling relaxed, it's pretty much a big leap, right? So is there any practical strategy that people can work around to make that happen?
Yes, in fact, wind down time does not always mean that you are relaxing yourself, but it means that you manage to keep yourself in a state of flow or in an engaged state, where whatever activities you're doing, they are pre-planned. Let's say you reach home around 8 and you have multiple responsibilities, taking care of kids, planning dinner, getting laundry done, sending an email or two. If you have all of these pre-planned, and you know that this has to be done in a sequence, if you manage to do that, that will be a great wind down time. That's the minimum requirement for someone to respect this wind down time window, is that it's pre-planned. It's not high stress activity. It's mundane stuff. You know, things that need to be done anyway. Paying bills or, you know, the basics that we have to do as humans. If you get that done, and it's just part of your routine. Something that can be replicated day after day. If these three requirements get covered, then you're nailing wind down time. Above and beyond this, whatever else you can do, whatever you enjoy, if you have enough bandwidth and time available for it, you can definitely add that to your routine. So for example, if you want to allocate time for Netflix, which I believe is really important after a long day, and nobody should deny themselves that time, it should be a part of your routine, as long as you are approaching it in a sleep conscious manner where you're giving it a fixed amount of time. It's pre-planned. You're enjoying it. And then after that, you have a follow-up activity towards which you will move easily.
So what should be that follow-up activity?
Pick up activities that are tiring. So I'll give you an example based on how we have helped our clients in sleep coaching to enjoy Netflix and fall asleep an hour later. Is that if they are watching an action film or a psychological thriller or something that's high on drama that creates an emotional response in them, right after that, we make them do a routine that's tiring their brain out. For example, we provide them with puzzles to solve. There are people who are knitting, because knitting is really hard on the brain. Anything that engages your hands, keeps you focused, and you know that it's tiring you out, those activities can significantly improve your pre-sleep routine.
Does mandala drawing would also help?
It does help. It definitely does. You have no idea how many people are doing it as part of pre-sleep routine, just to make sure that after Netflix they are able to fall asleep. So it makes it very easy for the body to generate sleep within a specific time window. So the hack here is that if you love Netflix, you watch it, and the content you watch is stimulating in nature, follow it up with activities which are engaging you physically, mentally keeping you focused. Do them for about 15-20 minutes and you'll see that the arousal level goes down. which means that your brain is not overthinking. It's not replaying the Netflix episode. That washes away with practice. So you can watch Netflix at night, enjoy it, and still fall asleep if you have the right pre-sleep routine in place.
You also said something that people who have this innate nature to control things, right? They typically struggle to sleep because they have this urge to control their sleep also, and which kind of gets in their way to surrender to sleep, right? So how should people like that, how can we reframe that narrative for them and get them to a zone where they are able to surrender?
I think two ways to help a person who is a control freak or who likes to be on top of things all the time. The first one is to target the nature itself. Why are you so controlling? And that's something that is covered usually in therapy. The other way to do that, as we do in sleep coaching, is to let that nature remain as it is, but to channelize that energy in healthier directions. And I'll give you an example of this. I was working with a UN representative at a very high position, I think 54-year-old lady, very ambitious, always on the go, extremely inspiring as a person, but also, wanting to control every aspect of her life, from people to furniture, in all aspects, right? So what we started to do with her, as a pre-sleep routine was, organization. Like her task before bedtime would be that she had to organize her cupboard. She had to organize her room. So what happened with this, doing this for about a month, was that by the time she was done exerting control on everything, she would be so tired, she would also be relaxed, that she would fall asleep.
Interesting. So that's their follow-up activity.
Yes.
Also talk about that, how does sleep help, right, in terms of healing? What exactly is this nighttime superpower of sleep in terms of healing my body, like tissue regeneration or hormone balancing, immune system? How does sleep help in that?
Sleep, if we look at it as a process for the mind, for the body, it's actually the body's pharmacy. It's where all the medicines are accessed. Okay, so our body has all the resources to fight infections, to heal wounds, to heal injuries. But the best way to access all of them is during sleep. So even today, if we look at people who live in Scandinavian countries, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, instead of going towards an antibiotic when there is an illness, they first go to sleep. Right? So even with kids, they don't go to the doctor or some other healing alternative. Instead, they spend at least one night asleep and then they go the next day. Because they have so much of faith in the power of sleep and how much it really works for us when there is an illness going on, especially at the onset of it. Because when we are asleep, cytokine production, it increases. What is that? So cytokine is, these are basically cells that are directed towards an area where infection has occurred. Okay. Inflammation is happening. The body will direct all of its cytokine cells towards those parts so that inflammation can be stopped. That's what the immune system does. Other than that, even for something as basic as a scratch or for muscle tear sort of situations, growth hormone plays a huge role in healing tissue. So growth hormone is majorly secreted during deep sleep. In fact, to a point that 70% of growth hormone is coming during deep sleep. So from a recovery perspective, from healing perspective, sleep has to be in place. to a point that when sleep is not happening properly, then healing gets hampered. Like I remember I was reading the study about mice that had undergone a certain cardiac disorder, which was induced. It was seen that after after the cardiac disorder had subsided, the mice that were not sleeping well, they did not recover well enough. Whereas the mice which were able to sleep for a good, I think 7 or 8 hours or whatever the optimum duration for mice is, they were recovering fast enough. So even for post-surgical recovery, for healing, sleep becomes crucial. If it's not in place, then recovery 100% is going to be suboptimal. That's how integral sleep is to recovery, specifically for the physical body. And even if we keep all of this aside, this is for the body, so much is happening on a cellular level. What sleep does for mental healing is astounding. And I remember I was reading somewhere that it's not just for like a traumatic event. In traumatic events, it has a significant role. Like for example, US Army veterans who had gone to Afghanistan, they come back with PTSD. So out of those, the PTSD patients who were not sleeping well enough, they couldn't recover through their emotional trauma at all. Whereas the ones who were getting enough of REM sleep, they showed significant improvement in, their PTSD diagnosis, and they were able to feel more resilient. So that is where sleep on a mental level can be a complete game changer for somebody who is going through a mental health disorder, whether it's depression, anxiety, PTSD. And if we even look at more benign situations in life, day to day, what we go through, there's something called as memory rehearsal that the brain does, which I find really fascinating. Like I'll give you an example of it. So let's say you had a terrible fight with a friend. It was a very nasty argument, and anytime we have such a negative interaction in life, it leaves an impression on us. So if you have that fight in the morning, you're going to carry it with you throughout the day, right? So that night, when you go to sleep, within the REM phase of your sleep, your brain is going to reorganize neurons in the exact same way as they were during the argument. So it's going to replay that memory from its own perspective. So like let's say when you were arguing, how were the neurons organized? That's going to happen again, but without the emotional aspect of it. So the brain will replay the memory, but it will not feel the emotion at all. So when that happens during the REM phase and it's done, the next day when you wake up, the same incident doesn't feel as bad. So the reason why this happens is because REM sleep is reorganizing neurons, rehearsing the whole incident, and removing the negative emotion out of it completely. So that's how the emotional impact of negative emotions, of distressing events, it becomes less over time.
So I know what REM sleep is, but I'm sure that a lot of people who are watching this right now, they are not aware of what REM sleep is. So if you could just highlight and expand on what it is. And also, I've also heard one more thing about REM sleep, that the way we have glorified that, we need to have REM sleep, it actually is also kind of ruining your sleep. So if you can also.
So REM sleep is one stage of a sleep cycle. When we are asleep, we go through different stages of consciousness. Basically, a sleep cycle is where your body is crossing different stages of sleep. Within each stage of sleep, there is a different process happening. This could be recovery, it could be rest, it could be detoxification, etc. So every sleep stage has a certain activity associated with it. And within every sleep cycle, we have sub-stages which we call as non-REM sleep or REM sleep. Okay? It has been seen that as a person goes through a sleep cycle, the first stage is called as light sleep. Within light sleep, it has been seen that a person is going through non-REM sleep. Non-REM sleep is a type of state within sleep where the body is getting recovered. There isn't enough activity in the brain. Okay? This is what light sleep is for. It's majorly for starting off the processes of physical recovery. This happens in the first half of the sleep cycle. From light sleep, we move towards deep sleep. Deep sleep is also non-REM sleep. And this is when the deepest physical recovery happens. It's also when dreams happen, but dreams are not as frequent or, they're not as prevalent in deep sleep. So some dreams happen, and along with that, the major focus is on getting physical recovery done. After deep sleep comes REM sleep. So before REM sleep, the body is focusing more on physical recovery and also on getting into sleep. Okay, so the focus of light sleep, deep sleep so far has been that you enter sleep and physical recovery happens. But as soon as you go to REM sleep, that focus shifts towards mental recovery. So that energy goes to the brain. Higher neurological activity happens. And within REM sleep is what, everything that goes on in the brain gets processed by itself. It's said that the glymphatic system is also more active in REM sleep, and in deep sleep as well. So these are the characteristics of each phase of a sleep cycle. And REM sleep is crucial for emotional processing, for mental health in general, because this is also a time when the brain is reorganizing its neurons, reorganizing information that has been collected during the day in a way that when you wake up, you've processed all of it. So from a information processing perspective, REM sleep is crucial for humans. And also it's crucial if you want to improve problem solving abilities, creativity. Wherever you want to optimize neurological performance, there REM sleep is very important.
So, since you talked about REM sleep, right, I was reading this article where it is said that most of the mind-blowing ideas people had were actually in sleep, right? I think the movie Terminator, it had its first sketch in sleep. Beatles got one of its songs in sleep. And I think you were also mentioning about how the idea of Google came up in sleep, right? So because I feel that if all of this is happening in sleep, then are we saying that anyone can unlock that creative side while being in their sleep? And if yes, how? How does that happen? Like, how can one unlock that?
I think the best place to use sleep to unlock a higher level of creativity is to let sleep, first of all, do its job, which means that, let's say if your body needs a certain duration of sleep, give it that time. That's very important. The second place is make your sleep as consistent as you can. It should happen within consistent time windows. So if a person is out there who's trying to become more creative or wants to improve problem solving abilities or think more efficiently, if he or she manages to make sleep more consistently timed and long enough, And if this happens for, months, it's a habit, he or she will start to see that the ideas will be very different. And also, I think the ideas will be different. You'll have a lot more mental bandwidth to think. That's also something that is a gift that comes from enough of good sleep. Most of these people were somewhere stuck. If you read about how was Google made or how was benzene discovered, because benzene was also discovered in a dream. So the invention of benzene, it's such a, strange story. Like, the inventor was, going through an experiment and meeting a lot of obstacles on the way. And then one fine day he was frustrated and he was tired and he went to sleep. And in a dream, he saw 6 snakes eating each other's tails. And the next day he had that visual in his mind. When he put it down on paper, he realized this is benzene. This is what he was looking for. So it's strange how dreams actually work. They can be visually stimulating or bring you messages that you would not be able to think consciously. And it's actually a great idea to work on how well are you dreaming or how well are you providing your body with the space to generate dreams if you want to become more creative as a person.
And I think it makes total sense because what you said before that in REM is where all of the information gets processed. And I also was reading someone's story where they said that any problem they wanted to kind of crack or solve, they used to literally journal everything about it, right? Whatever possible solutions they had, what exactly is the problem, and literally tire themselves out. And then they used to go for a nap. And in the nap, because now they're in that nap and their mind is able to process the information and look at it from like a bigger picture, that's where the solution used to come. So I feel it just makes total sense. So, for example, for me, what my takeaway would be that if there's any idea I'm working on, and also for me to have a better sleep, like if I can just journal everything around it tirelessly, that even my mind gets trained, and in the sleep then I can have like an enlightenment, like a flash of idea that I can work upon to make it even better.
Right. I think it's a practical strategy to, think better, and this would work for everyone who tries it out. When we are ideating, we are putting our conscious mind to its best use. But in that process, the subconscious mind is collecting way more information than what the conscious mind does. So when you go into sleep, your subconscious is so active, it already has collected more information than your conscious mind. And during sleep is when you have your conscious and subconscious coming together. So the range of ideas that your brain has, it's way more. And it's also combining everything automatically. Some days it works out in a way that Google comes up in someone's mind, or benzene comes out, and songs come out, like, the way Beatles had their experience. So I think it's a great idea for anyone to think beyond their own capacity, is to let sleep do its job.
I think I'm going to personally take this challenge for the next 20, 30 days and I'll get back to you with that, what exactly I figured out. You also spoke of lymphatic system while we were in the conversation, right? If you can tell the audience what lymphatic system is and why should we care about how it impacts our sleep?
So lymphatic system is, it's a relatively new discovery even for neuroscientists. Within the brain, there are these star-shaped cells, which we call as astroglial cells. The astroglial cells, along with a network of vessels, is what is the lymphatic system. And the system is crucial for waste management of the brain. So within the brain, during the day, we collect a lot of carbon dioxide, lactate. These are all byproducts of neurological phenomena, activity. And it has to be disposed Because if that does not happen, then physiological processes they slow down. So for the brain to function at its optimum, waste removal is important, and that's where lymphatic system is crucial. To a point that it has been seen that almost all organisms that sleep, they have a lymphatic system in place. So it's not like this has been an evolutionary trait in humans. It has been a prerequisite for the whole of the animal kingdom, pretty much. So the lymphatic system is important for removing wastes, and with that it's also deciding where will nutrients be going. So where will amino acids, lipids, neurotransmitters go? How will they be distributed to different parts of the brain?
This all is done by lymphatic system.
Right.
Okay.
But what makes this lymphatic system so important for us is that it only works during sleep. Like its major functioning happens when we are asleep, and during the day it barely does anything. So for the lymphatic system, its prime time is when we are asleep. And when we are not asleep, lymphatic system is not doing its job.
And what happens, like for example, if I'm not sleeping, so that means my lymphatic system is not throwing out the toxins or telling my brain where does all the nutrients go. So what are the harmful consequences if we are not giving our lymphatic system time enough to function? What happens?
In the short term, let's say you have not had enough sleep on a night. So in the short term, you might feel brain fog. You might feel you are thinking slowly, or you're not able to think as efficiently, or your attention span might go down. So various cognitive functioning will go down. But in the long run, the risk of Alzheimer's goes up. Dementia goes up if your lymphatic system is not working enough for a very long time. So this is how the lymphatic system is crucial for mental health. And this is also how sleep is so important
for mental
health again. So I think especially for, if you're a young person who wants to take care of your parents, you should be making sure that they are getting enough sleep. And that itself will make sure that, the risk of Alzheimer's or dementia, it goes down.
I think it will take people also to kind of digest what you said. But that has been like a solid insight. And yeah, I think more and more people should know about this. Okay, so we have spoken about, we will be speaking about some hacks how to kind of get sleep. But I also want to touch upon certain harmless habits, like, innocent things that we do or we think that, it's going to help in our sleep, but are actually ruining our sleep, right? For example, when we keep our phones on sleep or airplane mode, right? Does it help? Or we think that, evening workout is good or light dinners. What is your take on these kind of activities?
So with respect to sleep, actually any activity that happens by itself, we can't say it will be harmful or it will benefit. Instead of us deciding whether one activity will impact sleep, how it will impact sleep, what matters is the sequence of activities that is getting you to sleep. So, for example, let's pick up evening workouts.
Evening workouts, yeah.
So, usually it's said that you should avoid it because an evening workout, if it's intense, if it's heavy weight training or any form of movement that gets your cortisol to spike unusually high, that said that it's not really recommended, because if you have too much of cortisol in your body before sleep, that prevents you from winding down. So that way a heavy workout is not recommended. However, if after that heavy workout you are able to wind down enough,
a follow-up activity,
then that workout is also okay for you. So that way, all of these activities are their effects are very individualized. However, for a person who has no other option but to work out in the evening, he can still figure out a way to get that workout in, provided the follow-up activities are complementary in nature and they're also sleep conscious.
That's empowering, honestly. I mean, rather than saying that it is not going to happen or this is bad, I think this is empowering because of the varied lifestyles that we have. Right? It just gives more room for the person to kind of operate. So that's pretty empowering.
And just like that, a lot of people like to watch Netflix, or they want that screen time. You should have that. Just make sure it doesn't, impact your sleep. There's a way to figure that out. That, you get to do things you enjoy, but you also create a balance such that your sleep is not impacted.
Also, just like that, I heard some of the public personalities talking about having a nice herbal tea before they wind down to sleep, and they say that kind of helps them down. Does it, like having something like that, helps you in your sleep process?
With respect to sleep, if you're having any kind of herbal tea, like let's say if it's chamomile tea, it's fine. It might really help you to wind down. But if that form of tea has any amount of caffeine in it, it's not recommended. For example, a lot of people like to have green tea before bed. Not a good idea, because it still has enough caffeine that can keep you awake for a longer time. So as a beverage, if someone wants to have herbal tea, teas with chamomile or ashwagandha, they might work out for you, and it's good to have tea as part of your pre-sleep routine. As long as caffeine is not present within it, then it's great.
What's your take on light dinners? Is it helpful for sleep, or does it work against it?
Generally, light dinners are recommended. They're healthier for your system, because a light dinner that's easier to digest also means that your gut gets enough time to wind down. A heavier dinner means that your gut will have to stay awake for a longer time. Lighter dinner means that your gut will be able to, get the job done and get back home and get its own rest. So our body actually operates like an office. All our organs are basically employees. And everyone wants to go to bed on time.
Nice. I'm the CEO. Feels good.
Yeah, that's true. So that's how our organs are also programmed. A word of caution that should be added over here is that sometimes when dinners are too light, they're not fulfilling the body's caloric requirement, or they're not complementary to how active your stomach is. In that case, having a light dinner might affect sleep negatively. So sometimes the stomach, sometimes a lot of people, they reduce their dinner portion so much that the stomach has a huge capacity to digest. It secretes a lot of gastric juices, but the amount of food that comes in is not enough for that. So in that case, the stomach remains active for a longer time. So when the stomach has so much of gastric juice being produced that's not being put to any use, the stomach remains active for a very long time. So that's the other side of a light dinner. That don't make your dinner so light that it leaves your stomach in a state of high activity.
And impacts your sleep.
And again impacts your sleep. So it's about really finding that balance. Your dinner should not be too light. It shouldn't be too heavy. By the end of your dinner, you should feel full, but not heavy or lethargic. And within 2-3 hours, there should be a natural urge to go to sleep. So these are the three, parameters to look for when you're deciding whether a meal, will it impact your sleep or not, basically.
How does putting your phone on airplane mode or maybe charging it by the bedside, how all of that impacts sleep? Does it impact sleep, first of all?
It does. So we have preliminary research on how does a device that's in proximity of the human body when it's asleep, how does a device really affect you? Recently we've just got to know that if you keep your phone too close to your bed, the radiation part of it, the radiation that's emitted from the phone, has a direct impact on the human body. So this information has been out there. But what's more recent about this phenomena happening is that the radiation and the sound that comes from any device, it can directly impact your immune system. So if a person is sleeping around a lot of devices, gadgets that, especially gadgets that make sound, that has a direct impact on immunity levels in the long run. So that's one part of how a gadget could be changing your sleep, your immunity. The second part is the light that comes out of a device. Let's say even for a TV remote. Now a TV remote has a very small light in it, or the light from a Wi-Fi router. It's not much, but it's still impacting the amount of light exposure that you are in.
Really? Even the AC light for that matter?
The AC light from your radio, your Wi-Fi's, even from sleep trackers actually, if it goes on at night, that's all adding to the amount of light that you're surrounded with, and that all of it has an impact on how much melatonin is being secreted in your body. All the light that we're surrounded by at night is impacting sleep at a direct level, and the less light you have in your room, the better it is for your sleep. The darker your room is, that means that you will have better circulation of melatonin in your body, and because melatonin is crucial to keep the body in a state of sleep, to make sure that there's enough melatonin, darkness is important.
Also, for the unaware, can you tell what exactly is melatonin?
Yes, so melatonin is a hormone that's secreted by the pineal gland. It's the major hormone that induces sleep, and it's directly dependent on how much darkness is around us. Sure. Okay, so this is the reason why when dawn happens, when morning starts, light exposure starts to increase and darkness starts to reduce. So this is the reason we wake up.
Oh, because no melatonin is being produced at that point.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So why are we waking up is because darkness is reducing. Melatonin production reduces, and when there's not enough melatonin, you cannot stay asleep. So you end up awake.
I mean, that blows away my mind in terms that how nature has, kept all of this in a flow, and nature is so intelligent. I mean, the way our bodies react to it and the way our cycles are so intertwined with how nature is, it just sometimes blows away my mind.
That's true, and for years and years since humans have existed, we are directly dependent on the movement of the sun, and that has actually designed or changed our circadian rhythm to function in a certain way.
What is circadian rhythm for people who do not know about it?
Okay, so circadian rhythm it's a property of your body, basically, to run different functions within specific time windows. So I'll give you an example. All of us wake up in the morning, and we wake up once in every 24 hours. Okay? All of us will eat breakfast once in every 24 hours. And we repeat that activity in every 24 hours. Right? So this means that you are following a rhythm where every activity is repeating itself after every 24 hours. And this is what we call as a circadian rhythm. I think another way to look at it is that, what's your favorite show on Netflix?
Let's say Friends.
Okay. Do you have a favorite show on television, TV, or if you've had one?
Yeah. Friends, which moved to Netflix.
Okay.
But okay, let's take Suits.
Okay, let's take Suits. Okay, let's say that you would watch Suits on a television.
Yeah.
Earlier we used to have episodes airing once in every 24 hours.
Yeah.
Right? So we would
wait for it.
So that means that particular episode was also following a circadian rhythm. Okay. You know, that show was following a circadian rhythm where one episode coming in after every 24 hours. So this is basically a property of your body to repeat a function once in every day.
Okay.
Or to repeat a set of functions once in every 24 hours.
Sure.
Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That actually leaves me with the question that then ever since the whole concept of binge watching has come up, has that interfered with our circadian rhythm? Because now we don't have to wait.
That's true. It has.
Okay.
We don't have enough research on the extent to which it has affected our circadian rhythm. But we do know that the unusual amount of light exposure that happens in the evening because of watching a screen for whatever purpose, that interferes with the other processes that are occurring. There's a property of the circadian rhythm where one function is always followed by another function. So your body is following a sequence by design, that's how it is, such that it prefers a sequence of activities, right? So for example, your body has a preference that it will wake up at a certain time, then it will follow that up with breakfast, follow it up with work, follow it up with exercise, then wind down, then sleep. So innately we have this preference program.
Got it.
So within this sequence, when you introduce an unusual activity, that disrupts the sequence. And initially, it makes your body think, what's going on? What is this? Right? So on a physiological level, when you start to watch Netflix in the evening at a very late time, it confuses your circadian clock to think, it confuses your circadian rhythm. Because there's light coming in, it suddenly thinks that it's daytime. Right? So this is a big problem that happens. And when that happens for a very long time, for your body, it's just light coming in. It starts to think that it's day again. So it will start to wake up other organs too.
And that's the reason you don't get sleep.
Right. That's also another reason why inducing sleep gets very hard. Staying in sleep gets hard. Because your body has, it's been misguided into thinking that it's daytime again.
Got it.
So this is a big problem. That has changed us as a civilization altogether.
Is that also what blue light is? Because I read an article which said that exposure to blue light and EMF radiations also impact your sleep. So is it the same or is it different?
It's the same.
Okay.
The thing with blue light is that if you look at all the different wavelengths of light that are present, yellow light, blue light, all the colors, blue light, it has the worst impact on your sleep quality. There was this study done where, different lights were tested for how much do they impact melatonin levels or your levels of your sleep hormone. And it was seen that blue light exposure creates the biggest drop in melatonin levels as compared to yellow light or that of any other wavelength available. And all our devices have LED light in them. We are 95% of our light exposure is blue light. That makes it even more dangerous for us. And that's just, something that's such an integral part of our culture, and that makes it furthermore problematic.
So you've spoken about melatonin, but you also, within the conversation, also spoke a lot about cortisol, right? I also want you to touch upon that how high level of cortisol all throughout the day can also impact our sleep at night or can worsen our insomnia, because I feel, and again I read it somewhere, that it doesn't mean that, you're in a very high stressful activity to kind of hike up that cortisol. It can be something as having poor boundaries, right? That also pushes your cortisol levels. So I want to understand from you, what are these hidden stressors, how they kind of spike up our cortisol, and how is it related to having, in fact, worsening our insomnia?
So to understand the impact of cortisol, we'll first to know how does cortisol rise and fall.
Sure.
Cortisol is a very important hormone for us to stay awake. There's a phenomena called as a cortisol awakening response that occurs in the morning between 5 and 8 a.m.
Okay.
When you get that cortisol awakening response is when you actually wake up and your body starts to wake itself up, prepares to start the day. Okay? If a person does not have a cortisol awakening response, his energy will be so low that waking up would feel like a tedious task.
Okay.
So in the first half of the day, to have that cortisol spike is crucial for us to start our day. Right? So between 5 and 8 a.m., it occurs once. There's a peak in cortisol, and then we start our day. Okay? In the first half, cortisol rises, but in the second half, it starts to drop. Okay? Ideally, after 6 p.m., you should have low levels of cortisol, because that promotes in getting better sleep.
Okay.
So that's how the flow of cortisol fluctuates during the day. Okay. For individuals who live in a high stress environment, this graph changes fully. They would start their day with very high cortisol, but that cortisol wouldn't drop in the evening. It would remain
consistent.
It would either be consistent or the drop would not be as much. Okay? So such an individual would remain with high cortisol even in the evening.
Okay.
Now, when this happens chronically, this leads to sleep difficulties.
Okay.
If we look at sleep and what does an individual need to get good sleep, there are 3 E's that need to be covered. Okay. You should be calm enough, you should be sleepy enough, and you should be tired enough. Okay. From an experiential perspective, if you're checking into these boxes, you're calm enough, sleepy enough, tired enough, you will fall asleep.
Okay.
When you have too much of cortisol in the evening, you're not calm enough. So that comes in the way of you falling
Sleeping
asleep
well.
or staying asleep.
Okay.
For individuals who have insomnia or those who are at a high risk of insomnia, higher levels of cortisol can keep them in this vicious cycle where they are struggling with insomnia. Insomnia struggle further increases cortisol. High cortisol further prompts more insomnia-like condition. And that cycle continues. It's interlinked. It's a never-ending cycle. So cortisol fluctuations and dysregulation in the flow of cortisol is enough to keep a person in the state of insomnia. And at the same time, if an individual who has insomnia manages to take charge of cortisol levels by introducing more relaxation in his or her routine, changing diet, changing lifestyle overall, breaking insomnia or breaking that cycle of insomnia becomes very easy.
In fact, I was about to ask you because what really kind of took me in awe was when I read that even something like multitasking, which is kind of a trait in most of us, right? Multitasking or maybe not having good boundaries. These are the things that can actually spike up your cortisol. Now that's a trait. For other things, it's externalized. I can have control on how much of light exposure I have, if I keep my gadgets away. But that's a personality trait that all of us have, right? So what would you suggest people like that? Because someone who's a multitasker would be in that mode, right? So that means they would have higher cortisol even in the evening at the evening time. So what would you suggest for people to kind of wind down on their cortisol levels as evening progresses? What should they be doing?
A practical way to, make sure that the choice of your activities or the choice of your work style, it does not create a spike in cortisol, is to leverage your evenings. Okay. A lot of people, what they try to do is they try to change their working style or their approach to work completely. Like, for example, if a person has a tendency to multitask, firstly, you cannot change that overnight. It takes a long time.
Right.
In fact, for most people, multitasking would be their second nature.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sure you would also relate to it. We're just used to it, right? So there's no point in trying to change the tendency itself. A more practical approach would be to change that behavior for a short period of time, and change that behavior just for the evenings. Okay. For example, let's say if you have been multitasking all through the day, whatever multitasking is happening during the day, during the time the sun is up, basically, it's not really going to impact your sleep as much.
Sure.
It's not going to impact how you wind down in the evening. But whatever multitasking you do in the second half of the day, that has the highest chance of impacting your sleep.
Okay.
Like this, I'm sharing from a more practical, experience-based perspective, right? So, for a person who is used to multitasking, let it happen during the time of the day between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. But from 6 p.m. to 12 a.m., change your routine in a way that instead of multitasking, you focus more on deep work that requires you to stick to one task for a longer time.
Okay.
That is a more practical approach that actually gets a person to also wind down, keeps the mind engaged, and is also productive time for you to be engaged, to be relaxed, and to eventually not let your your multitasking or your energy in general to come in the way of your sleep.
So it goes the same, like, reorganizing your wardrobe or maybe coloring or anything like that, what you suggest to the start, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Today, in the evening, if you're able to stick to an activity, if you're able to keep yourself engaged in it, immerse yourself in it, that's a real achievement. Earlier, this would happen easily when, our parents would be able to do it very easily. Grandparents this was their style of living.
Yeah.
But today, with the kind of complexity that we live in, even if you're able to allocate that 1 hour where you're just doing one thing and really sticking to it, that is, that's enough to make sure that you have enough control and you have that agency on your own behavior. That's what I feel.
Sure. Does poor gut health, does that also impact how we sleep? Because I feel serotonin, which is kind of a precursor of melatonin, that is produced in gut, right? That's what my understanding is. So does poor gut health, does the way I have my food choices, or maybe antibiotics, all of that collectively, does that impact my sleep because of high inflammation and having really poor digestive system?
It does.
Okay.
So gut health, sleep, they are indirectly linked to each other. Okay. Because gut health, when it's not optimum, it's also linked to hormonal imbalances anyway. Okay. Right? Because let's say 70% of serotonin is coming from the gut, and it's directly influencing melatonin levels as well. When serotonin is not being produced sufficiently, melatonin production also goes down by itself. So that shows up as difficulties in falling asleep or staying asleep. So that is one part of the whole process. Other than that, depending on what exactly is the change in gut health, a lot of other occurrences also are there. How a lot of people who have gut related issues, they also experience premature waking up. They wake up way too early. And a very interesting link to this, I've come across in Chinese medicine. Okay, so basically traditional Chinese medicine talks about qi. Qi is the energy that keeps us alive. It's the vital force. Yeah. And it travels through meridians of the body. So during the night time, qi is absorbed by the gut, by metabolic organs. These organs use qi for repair and restoration. And for these organs to use that qi to repair themselves, sleep is a prerequisite. Which means that if the body is not in a state of sleep, they will not be able to absorb qi well enough. They will not be able to repair themselves.
Exactly the first thing that we started with. That sleep, is important for overall healing, right?
Yes. Yeah. And it's also true vice versa. For example, if a certain organ is in a state of dysfunction, it's not performing well enough, it becomes hard to induce sleep. Or it becomes hard to stay in sleep. Okay. I'll give you a practical example of how this pans out. If we look at night time between 12 a.m. and 5 a.m., our liver, pancreas, large intestine, they are all restoring themselves. Okay, so for liver, this happens between 2 to 3 a.m. For large intestine, I think it happens between 4 and 5 a.m. These are defined time windows when organs are detoxifying themselves, repairing themselves. Right? So, let's say a person has some health issue concerning the liver. Okay. There's a very high chance he'll be waking up between 2 and 3 a.m. And when that happens more frequently, it's an indicator that the liver
is not functioning properly.
Right. Okay. So it has been observed that for people who wake up within specific time windows, and they've been waking up for these specific time windows over a long period of time, the associated organ is in a state of dysfunction. Right? So if anyone out there feels that, okay, I'm waking up at 3 a.m. every night, it's actually a good idea to get a liver function test done, just to be sure that, sleep disruption is not happening because of organ dysfunction, which is actually quite common as an occurrence, but we don't realize about it. So from a traditional Chinese medicine perspective also, it's seen that gut health and sleep are, they're impacting each other all directly and very frequently. It's also seen that melatonin specifically has a huge role to play in maintaining gut health. for example, when the gut is in a dysregulated state, it's seen that the microbiomes or the bacteria in the gut, they're not in the right proportions, which means that the so-called good bacteria are fewer. There are harmful bacteria coming in more frequently. It's also seen that the barrier of the gut, it becomes a little more porous. So that means the good bacteria are easily able to exit the gut. And it's seen that the gut is not able to move well enough. Like gut motility goes down. So these things happen when there is a gut-related issue happening. But when you take melatonin, it's seen melatonin repairs all of these difficulties. So it makes the gut less porous. So the good bacteria don't leave as easily. They stay in. It's seen that they're able to thrive. The good bacteria are able to thrive in the gut more easily. And the motility of the gut remains to its optimum quality, so that food is able to move down.
Which betters my gut health.
Yes, exactly.
So basically, in short, if I can say, if I sleep with all blackout in my room, there would be enough time for melatonin production, which actually is also good for my gut health.
It is.
So sleeping in dark is good for your gut health.
Indirectly, we can say.
Indirectly.
Sleeping in a dark enough room.
Dark enough room, 100%. Yeah.
Is, in the long run, it's also going to ensure better gut health.
Got it.
Than sleeping in a room with a lot of light.
Got it.
So that's absolutely true. And there's this very interesting observation that I come across from time to time with my clients in sleep coaching also, is that when we are working on sleep, in regularizing it, improving quality, even when we have only worked on sleep, 3 weeks later, we see that constipation has stopped without any direct interventions to relieve constipation. Acidity drops without directly targeting acidity. So these after effects on digestion I come across them very frequently, and that has only happened when we have worked on sleep. So for anyone out there who has a chronic digestion related issue, whether it's acid reflux or it's constipation, flatulence, all of these big issues, small issues, if you manage to get your sleep in its most healthy routine, it's a smart strategy for you to ensure long-term good digestive health.
Wow.
So
that's interesting.
And I feel that generally, no matter what kind of a health goal you have, whether you want to build six-pack abs or you want to improve your mental health, if you start from sleep,
things would be easier.
Things would be easier for you to, achieve better health in the long run.
I think it's also the reason why a lot of people who want to lose weight but have poor sleep, they're not able to, because again, related to
completely and directly. Till a night when you've not slept well enough, the next day you will have higher levels of cortisol. That's the first area of concern. You will have more cravings for sugar, for complex carbs. These are immediate changes.
So if I'm not having my proper sleep, I will have cravings.
Your tendency to grab a pizza will be higher. Now, we don't know whether you will or not, but you will want it way more. Yeah. And it's like this will happen for sure with everyone. That's the first place where poor sleep makes it very tough for you to stick to a weight loss regime.
Okay.
Other than that, chronically, if you're not sleeping long enough, your hormonal imbalances become more frequent, more likely, such that appetite becomes irregular. So it's been seen that when you're not, you don't have a regular sleep routine in place, or you're sleeping less, shorter durations of sleep, The levels of leptin and ghrelin.
What are those?
These are hormones that are controlling your appetite.
Okay.
Leptin is promoting hunger. Ghrelin promotes satiation, which means that
you feel full.
You feel full. It promotes fullness, basically. So, for you to, what's really deciding whether you will pick up a pizza or not is leptin and ghrelin. Because you're not sleeping well enough, their functioning will 100% go for a toss. And you will not have any control on leptin and ghrelin. So, poor sleep is really setting you up for dysregulated appetite.
Poor gut health, in short.
Poor gut health as well. And increasing the likelihood of you also to want to skip your workouts. So this is another aspect of how sleep impacts the mindset. The mindset that's so important in a weight loss journey as well. Okay, so I think anyone who has gone through a weight loss journey would know that mindset plays a big role in general. You could have all the best resources with you, but if you don't have your mind in it, if you don't have the right conditioning, you will stop following your routines. If a person is not sleeping well enough, because cognitive abilities change so much, willpower goes down. So there's a high chance you'll not want to lift heavy weights. There's a chance that your perceived fatigue, perceived stress levels go up, which means that you will think that you are more stressed than you actually are. You will think that you are fatigued faster than you actually are. So, with higher perceived stress, higher perceived fatigue, you will not be able to nail your workouts to your best capacity either. So, sleep performance directly impacts your diet by changing your appetite. It also impacts your workouts by changing your performance, by changing your mindset while you're doing the workout. So it really sets you up for multiple layers of failure as a gist. Or it sets you up for suboptimal performance in every area of your life, whether it's physiological or even social for that matter.
Do emotions play a part in in being sleep deprived? What I mean is that do feelings of grief or maybe some trauma or guilt, could they be reason that we feel sleepless and we're not able to have a good sleep?
Yes. From my experience of helping people who have multiple unprocessed thoughts and emotions, these have a direct impact on sleep. Our emotional state, our emotional resilience, and our sleep, they are always linked. And on a day-to-day basis, how well emotionally regulated you are is also influencing how you sleep. Okay? To an extent that this again might sound controversial to some people, but if you really want to find how well a person does, meet them in the day. If you want to find out how well they feel, meet them in the night. And you will, with people who, who you might feel have their life together, you might feel that that's how they are, they're always happy, but sometimes if you meet them in the evenings, they'll show you a different, you'll see a different side of them. If you look at our emotional states in the morning and the evening, there's a very subtle transition that starts to happen. Okay? So when we wake up, we're ready to do, we're ready to take action. We have our work personality coming in. We have 10 things to do. So when we start doing these things, we are easily able to cover up our emotional side. Okay? And this happens subtly, very subconsciously with all of us. Okay? But as the day starts to wear off and evening comes, because work subsides, that personal side comes on. Okay? We start to slow down because of less activity, and we start to connect more with ourselves in the evening. So when it's evening, you are, getting free from work and you are starting to feel more things. If you have more unprocessed emotion, unprocessed thoughts, they will show up more
while you sleep,
or even before you sleep.
Sure.
So a lot of women who are working very hard in their careers, who are always on the go, really, giving their best every day. Men and women both.
Sure.
I usually work with women, so that's what I share from. By the end of the day, just before bedtime, they feel like, they either just break down or they feel a lot of anger, frustration that they were not able to share during the day because they were so busy doing things, getting things done. So all of that pent up negative emotion, the only time it comes out is at bedtime. So that's why, bedtime is actually a very personal time for every individual. It's when you are really you. And if in that point of time you don't have mechanisms to emotionally regulate yourself, you become so vulnerable that it becomes hard to sleep, and that affects your sleep. Sit down and really ask yourself, how do you feel? There are a lot of tools to help individuals to emotionally regulate themselves in the evening.
What is that one emotional release technique that you can suggest people so that they can release their emotion before they go to sleep?
So there is a tool we use in sleep coaching which is called as constructive worry.
Okay.
We have constructive worry sheets that we give to clients.
Okay.
Which is basically a sheet that's divided into two columns. One is a column for problems, the other is for plans. You simply have to write down your problems and how you plan to address them. This is one form of a constructive worry sheet. Another form of constructive worry sheet that we've now started to use is, it has three columns. One is for problems, one is for plans, one is for problems, one is for how do you feel about this problem, and then the third column is for how do you plan to deal with it.
Okay.
And then sometimes you can also share whether you accept the problem or you choose to do something about it. So this constructive worry as an activity is, in the long run, it's such a game changer, as we also see with our clients. 3 hours before bedtime, if you sit down for 10 minutes to do a constructive worry sheet to fill it up, at bedtime you feel lighter. And subconsciously it also programs your mind to believe that this worry has been dealt with. It doesn't feel as fresh to your mind, so it's able to let go more easily.
Okay.
So for anyone out there who is, who feels more unhinged or vulnerable at bedtime, can try this constructive worrying exercise for 21 days.
Okay.
And can see a significant improvement in
the way they sleep.
The way they sleep and, the mind right before it enters into sleep.
Sure. Okay. Take me through how sleep deprivation looks like in two ways. First, let's just address about the body. How sleep deprived can make our bodies lead up to chronic diseases like heart ailments and diabetes. If you can just touch upon it briefly, and then the other point would be how it shows up in our relationships, which I feel is a really interesting topic, and not many people talk about it, but we've had the conversation, and I know you feel deeply about it. So first, let's just address the body part, and then we'll go on to relationships.
Okay. So on a physical level, sleep deprivation does have an impact homogeneously on the entire body. Some processes are affected more than others. For example, a night of sleeping less has a larger impact on your digestive system than on your cognitive health. I mean, this too can vary from people to people, but generally it's seen that some processes are affected more than others. Digestion, as we discussed, it does change. You feel more cravings, you feel more hunger, you feel sometimes you feel more constipated as well, because gastric mobility it drops. So digestion is impacted. On a cognitive level, what I find fascinating is how sleep deprivation impacts emotional regulation from the perspective of the brain. So within the brain, we have a limbic system and we have a prefrontal cortex. Okay, limbic system is part of the hindbrain, and that's the seat of all our desires. Okay, so let's say for example, if someone is trying to harm us, is trying to attack us as humans, the first urge we would be feeling is to attack back. That comes from the limbic system. All of our emotions of fear, anger, lust, limbic system is the source of them. Okay. Limbic system is in direct control of the prefrontal cortex, which is basically the front of the brain. This is from where we do all our rational thinking. Okay. So let's say someone tries to hit me, slap me. My limbic system will tell me to slap back, but my prefrontal cortex will tell me I am a better person, so I'll not do that. So these two parts of the brain are interconnected, and it's very important that the limbic system remains in control of the prefrontal cortex. Okay. When a person is sleep deprived, this control becomes weaker. So the limbic system has more authority. It has more reactivity that leads people to being more violent, or it increases the urge to be more violent in people. Other than that, really subtle changes that happen because of sleep deprivation include attention span dropping. A sleep deprived person will struggle to pay attention in an environment where he's not supposed to pay attention. Okay. For example, let's say if you are sleep deprived and I give you a task to do, you'll be able to do that task with enough focus. But while you're doing that task, if I call you from somewhere else, you'll probably ignore me. So whatever is happening in your surroundings, you'll pay less attention to stimuli. That is where sleep deprivation has a significant impact in the way that we pay attention to our surroundings, how we, pay attention to events happening in front of us. And it's so surprising the extent to which this has gone is that disasters like Bhopal gas tragedy, disasters like some Air India flight crashes that have happened,
Sleep deprivation.
the pilots, the people in charge were all sleep deprived. So I think 6 to 7 of the world's biggest disasters, from Chernobyl to Bhopal gas tragedy, they have all taken place because people in charge were not sleeping enough. So that way, because sleep deprivation has such a significant impact on our attention paying capacity, it has been deadly so far. And yet a lot of people are not paying enough attention to sleep deprivation itself.
But I think after this, when we put this out, I think now people will, because these are the peak consequences that you can have, and I don't think many people would be able to relate to that, but I think after this podcast, they will get the sense of how important it is to be not sleep deprived, right? How does it manifest in relationships? Because I have heard that, your arguments, your misunderstandings, it does stem from chronic sleep issues. How does that happen?
It does. I feel nobody will correlate a breakup to sleep deprivation, but there's a very high chance that a sleep deprived partner will not be as
rational,
present or as rational or as emotionally present as a partner that sleeps well. Okay. And this is true on multiple levels, as has been observed by research also.
Are we saying that emotional availability of people also depends on how well they sleep?
Absolutely. A person who's sleep deprived is firstly not fully in charge of his or her emotions. And it has also been seen that sleep deprivation specifically has this impact of creating emotional dullness, which means that a sleep deprived person, if he experiences a happy event, something good happens, he'll not be able to be that happy. And if something terrible happens, he will feel worse about it. So the emotional reactivity in a negative situation heightens when you're sleep deprived, and in a positive experience it dampens or dulls down. So that is a characteristic of chronic sleep deprivation as well, that it changes your emotional range and the way that you react towards the people around you. And even though we don't study it as much, but on a subtle level, everyone would be feeling it to some extent, or is seeing it in people that surround us. So this is one aspect of how behavior changes. More subtle ways in which it does changes, that a sleep deprived partner would not listen as intently. It'd be like, yeah. Not listen, take out phone. Like this happens also because of the brain being in a foggy state, in an altered state.
Sure.
And very interesting is also this observation that how sleep deprivation is changing the way we look and the way we sound.
Really? That's interesting. I want you to highlight on that.
So there have been two very interesting studies on how sleep deprivation is changing your facial expressions.
This is the first time I'm listening to this.
I think it's also because it's very recent as research.
Okay.
So I think 21 people were studied in two phases. First, where they were sleeping well enough, and in the second, when they were not. And you can see a significant change in their facial expressions, not in the sense that the face is changing, but the look changed drastically. I think I'll share those images with you. And
yes, please. We would love to see that. Yeah.
You too would be able to see.
Sure.
Like a lot of these changes happen to the lips. The lips start drooping more. The eyes lose their brightness. So very subtle changes that sleep deprivation does to how friendly we look. There was another study showing that a sleep deprived person at work seems less approachable, less dependable. And this has all been documented through controlled groups, through studies.
Okay.
So a sleep deprived person will seem more reserved, more introverted, less trustworthy. Everything you don't want to be at work if you want to get successful. And
so sleep is important for success.
it's extremely important to be perceived as a successful person. And along with that, there was this other study that was trying to evaluate how does sleep deprivation change your voice. So a group of scientists were studying, I think they were couples, they were studying and checking for acoustic parameters.
Okay.
Like how enthusiastic you sound, how rough is your voice, how brilliant do you sound before and after sleep deprivation.
Oh.
And in all of those cases, they found that a sleep deprived person's voice it's lower in pitch, it's more rough, and it just sounds disinterested. So this is all based on research that has come out that without you really feeling disinterested or low on energy, you inevitably will sound disinterested and just not your best if you're not sleeping well.
So basically, all the people who are complaining of emotionally unavailable partners and that, the partners are always disinterested, one of the major reasons can be they're just sleep deprived.
It's
help them sleep better and maybe they actually show up really well in their relationships as well.
I think I do feel that sleep deprivation can make a red flag redder. For sure.
I'm gonna put this in teaser. Sleep deprivation. This is a good line. I'm gonna use it.
But I don't feel like it's. I'm sure by itself sleep deprivation will not.
Of course.
Yeah, but yeah, for sure I feel like red flags will become maroon over time.
Maybe I think they should also do a study on this. That if people who partners who complain that my partner is disinterested, and then have them good sleep and in a course of some days how they show up. I think that'll also be a good, interesting study.
Such a fun study. I think they should start from India and see how relationships change.
Yeah, especially the metro cities, I feel.
Yeah.
We need it.
We do. I fully agree.
Yeah.
So, on a visual and vocal level, sleep deprivation changes, and most often for for a partner or for any other family member, that's the only side that they are receiving.
Yeah.
They're seeing you, they're hearing you.
Yeah.
So often we get, we hear these complaints from our family that you said something in this tone that was hurtful. So that too could be linked to poor sleep indirectly. So I feel that if a person really starts to sleep better, in the long run, they can be more of themselves. Forget about being better.
More emotionally present, at least.
Absolutely. Yeah. More emotionally present and just more in sync with their own emotional state as well for themselves. Mm-hmm. So I feel that would be a great place for anyone to also, again, overall work on life. Is to just, really start to work on sleep.
Yeah. But the relationship, it was a fun bit. I liked it. Okay. So now I want to move to something that all of us have been grown up listening to about the importance of waking early and being the 5 a.m. club member and even Brahma that has been also mentioned in our scriptures, right? Yeah. What is your take on night owls really trying hard to become a part of the 5 a.m. club, one? And second, because I feel you talk a lot about how sleep should be personalized, right? It's not like one size fit all approach, right? So do you think that genetics also play an important part in the way we sleep? Like, are we early risers? Are we late sleepers? Does that also, do our genetics also hint on that? And second, that should then those night owls even try to get up early, or should they try to personalize the way they sleep?
Okay, so genetics have a role to play in deciding whether we'll be a night owl or a morning person.
Okay.
There's this gene called as the period gene, which is present on one of the chromosomes.
Okay.
Those who have a certain variant of the period gene, they become night owls because their body wakes them up at a later stage.
Oh.
And they feel sleepy at a later stage. So there is genetic proof that states, the presence of night owls and the fact that they like to stay awake till late and wake up late.
Okay.
And in fact, there have been multiple studies also proving how different genes are contributing to it. It's not always just one, but many. There's a group of people who are night owls by birth, which means that they have a certain genetic composition that makes them sleepy later and makes them wake up later. And then there's the other genetic variant that makes people wake up earlier. So that is one aspect of how genes are influencing us by creating by birth night owls. Okay, and even from an evolutionary perspective, night owls have also supported evolution overall, because if we did not have night owls, if everyone, if we go back to the times of early man, if everyone was going to sleep early, waking up early, nobody would be up at night to protect against animals or enemies. So since then, every tribal community, every community of early men have appointed people to stay up till late in the night, behave like a night owl in order to protect the pack. So night owls have been significant for society.
Yeah. But then how should night owls be able to optimize sleep in a way that, they are also getting their proper sleep and they're also not falling short or maybe, coming late at work or, not able to function well because brain is foggy. What should they do? Like any one practical step you can recommend that this is how they can optimize their sleep.
So if there's a night owl who has a day job, by default he or she will have to wake up early. Right? Because we live in cities and we don't have the luxury of waking up late.
Yeah.
So if a night owl is in such a situation, he will have to learn how to prepone bedtime in a natural way. Right? If we prepone our bedtime suddenly, that's not healthy for our circadian rhythm. Because the circadian rhythm has its own time preference for everything. So you cannot introduce a sudden change, because then the circadian rhythm will, experience it as a state of chaos, and that will have its own effects. Right? So a night owl will have to gradually prepone bedtime, such that he or she starts to feel sleepy earlier. And if that starts to happen, automatically he'll wake up earlier as well. Okay. So if I were a night owl who wants to sleep early, which is important for me to wake up early and start my day on time, I would start to work on setting a pre-sleep routine that induces sleep earlier. This can be done by changing light exposure earlier in the evening. So you could switch to dimmer lights in the evening. Make it darker earlier. When it becomes dark earlier, melatonin production increases earlier. So you feel sleepy earlier as well. So this is how a night owl should be thinking. And when this practice is done for 17 to 21 days, sleep will start to happen earlier. The night owl will start to sleep, will start to feel the urge to sleep earlier and earlier. So this is a practical strategy to start to improve sleep onset, to prepone it in a way that
So since we are talking about sleep personalization, right? I read it somewhere about chronotypes. I don't have much information on that. I could just barely read about lion and a dolphin. And there are 4 types of chronotypes. So if you can help people understand what are these 4 chronotypes and how unique it is for each and every category and how it can help them sleep better.
So chronotypes are basically telling you that you have certain genes that decide when you will wake up and when you will go to sleep. This is what a chronotype does. Okay, so based on that, there are 4 types of chronotypes. A person with a certain chronotype has a set of genes that will basically tell you, that will control when the person is going to wake up.
Sure.
So like that, there are 4 different types of chronotypes. There's a bear chronotype, there is lion, there's a wolf and a dolphin. Okay. So basically at the crux, these are all, genetic compositions that are all different in us, and they're also deciding when we'll have peak productivity, windows in the day, when are we going to feel hungry, and along with that, it also describes certain personality traits. Like, for example, if we pick up the lion chronotype, individuals like to wake up early. They're most productive in the first half of the day. They like their day to be in a certain way. Everything has to be done in a proper order.
They're more organized.
Very organized. A lot of lion chronotype individuals are in leadership positions and ambitious by nature, disciplined. So these are properties that have also been seen with individuals who have lion chronotype.
Sure.
Okay. Like that, we also have dolphin chronotype. So dolphin chronotypes, these are the sensitive sleepers, which means that the slightest of noise will wake them up.
Light sleepers.
Very light sleepers. Very particular about their sleep environment. It has to be a certain way. It has to be dark enough. There cannot be any sound. If you hear someone say all of this, he's probably a dolphin chronotype. And you can also find out what is your chronotype by taking this chrono quiz that's available on Google. If you just type chrono quiz, go for the first option and just fill up information that's required, you'll be able to find out, what's your chronotype. Most people fall in the category of bear chronotype. 50% of the world, almost 50%, is actually having bear chronotype.
And that is?
These are individuals who like to wake up early, but they're not fussy about when they'll wake up.
Okay.
Is that how you are?
I'm still trying to figure out which one is me, but yeah.
I am a bear chronotype.
Okay.
Bear chronotype people are easygoing, like to be social. They like to operate the way that the sun does, which means that when the sun rises, they'll start their day. When the sun sets, they'll also end it as easily.
Okay.
And they're not, they're not too particular about processes. They like to go with the flow.
More flexible and adaptive.
More flexible. And with that, they also have their specific windows for, productivity, which are similar to that of a lion. And then there's the wolf chronotype, which is closest to what a night owl is. Wolf chronotype people have peak productivity windows in the second half of the day. They're more creative, more artistically oriented, and they feel more energetic in the evenings. So these are the chronotypes, that have come up in the last, 35 years, based on, how people are waking up and the genetic compositions that they've been born with. And I think a very interesting space where chronotypes really matter in society is when, you're married to a partner who has a different chronotype.
Yeah.
So that creates a big problem, and on a very real level.
Totally.
I think nobody is going to relate to this, but
Yeah.
it's just something that you would hear from a person who has a spouse who likes to sleep very late, as I get through my clients all of this information. A big problem with having a partner who doesn't follow your sleep routine is that in the initial days of getting married or just moving in together, that too can lead to sleep loss. And it's a big grievance with a lot of people that doesn't get discussed enough.
So basically, other than getting your kundlis checked, you should also check what chronotype your partner is. Are you bear? Are you wolf?
It's not a bad idea.
100%. It's a very good idea.
In fact, in fact in the US, this is becoming a little more popular now, with this concept of sleep divorce coming up. This is a real problem when two partners are not having the same sleep routine. Couples are actually preferring to sleep separately on some days, so that they're getting enough sleep. So, and this too is linked to, indirectly linked to how chronotypes are defining your sleep patterns. So the more people will realize about it, I'm sure it's going to dictate their choices and how they're approaching sleep and relationships in general. Yeah, just a small snippet I wanted to share.
Interesting. Tell me, how can, we've spoken about night owls, but let's take different categories of people and tell me how they can personalize their sleep. For example, there can be parents of toddlers, who are waking up early or maybe in between the night as well to tend to them. Or maybe there can be shift workers. There can be these are the kind of categories. There can be entrepreneurs who are literally pushing for deadlines, right? So, of course, we cannot fit all of them in one blanket. How can these people still optimize their sleep, and still kind of working on what they're doing?
So, what really decides what an ideal sleep pattern should be like for an individual is, first of all, how stressful is life. Big factor in deciding how will sleep go on. Second is, how much control does this person have on his time? Like, for example, parents would not have as much control on time.
Yeah.
But an entrepreneur in a smooth phase of his career will have more control on his time. So how much control you have on your time decides how well you can leverage sleep. Then the third and the most important factor that will decide your sleep performance is how easily you wind down. Some people are very easygoing. They'll lie down and fall asleep within 5 minutes. Some people take hours to fall asleep.
Yeah.
It's also a mindset, a tendency that's there since childhood. So these three factors decide what kind of a sleep pattern or a sleep routine you should be following. Okay. Let's say if there are any new parents listening to us, if you're trying to figure out your sleep and you have a toddler, the first step is to find your toddler sleep pattern. And there's a branch of sleep professionals called as baby sleep consultants, who can help you to figure out how to put your toddler to sleep, how to create a healthy sleep pattern for your toddler. So if there's a parent out there who is pulling his hair out, doesn't know what to do, first step is to find a baby sleep consultant. They are available in India as well. And once your child's sleep has regularized to a certain extent, after that you can start to really look into your sleep in a way that you can take sustainable sleep strategies that will also help you out as a parent. So let's say if your toddler's sleep routine has been regularized, after that what new parents can use as strategies, first of all, is a good nap. For a new parent, as per studies, it's seen that in the first 2 years of having a baby, a new parent loses up to 6 months of sleep. So sleep loss is most
Common.
It's most common. It's most intense for new parents, and it takes years and years to recover that.
Years.
Because once the baby grows up, then it's not like they become responsible after 3 years old.
And by the time you recover, then you have another baby.
Exactly. Yeah, but that's just how it is. When you have a child, you don't keep a track of your sleep hours because the structure of your life changes so much. But despite all of that, a great place to still make sure that you're less sleep deprived is to try to get in as many naps as you can. A nap is super beneficial for a new parent because even if you get 10 minutes of it, that 10 minutes will only have light sleep or non-REM sleep. But even
at least it's healing.
Absolutely. Even 10 minutes of non-REM sleep is going to make you feel physically more restored. So short naps also work very well for new parents. That's probably the only way they can really cover up on pent-up sleep.
But what would you suggest to working fathers or maybe single working mothers? I mean, they have to be at office, they come back, they have to tend to their kids. How they should optimize it?
So, for a new parent who has, by default, who has multiple responsibilities, getting a little strict with sleep as a decision can also work wonders. So this means that on your list of things to do, keeping sleep higher up than doing any trivial chores that don't really add to life, that sort of change in prioritization can be helpful.
Sure.
For example, if there is a new mom out there who has a toddler, instead of trying to always keep the house clean, rather get a nap in. That sort of subtle shift in decision making can be really beneficial to sort of squeeze in a nap. That being said, for the longest time, for a new parent, it's not going to be easy. Sleep will go for a toss, and there are very few ways to manage it for the first 2 years at least. Depending also on the kind of social structure that this parent is living in. If there's family around who can be given tasks to do, if tasks can be delegated to them, and time be made for sleep, then that's great. So all in all, the changes that can be made to really buy more time to sleep.
Sure.
Other than that, every other change, we don't know how effective it will be in helping a parent out specifically. But the more time you buy, the better it will be for your sleep. Yeah. If you look at other professions, let's take up high stress jobs, entrepreneurs, pilots, or anyone who has a fluctuating schedule, living in a very volatile work environment. The biggest mistake that they make is they set a routine and they try to keep that routine consistent for all 5 days. That doesn't work. For someone who's trying to improve sleep quality, instead of trying to fix sleep timings for every day, Monday to Friday, what is a better strategy is to fix it for 3 days. 3 days of the week, you try to sleep between 11 p.m. to 12 a.m. That way, what happens is that despite the fluctuations that happen in work or otherwise, you can still get in 3 hours. So you can still get 3 days when you're able to sleep and follow a routine that you've decided. So from a goal setting perspective, it's useful. Second, a very important change very important aim that needs to be stuck to is duration of sleep. A lot of people in high stress jobs have a tendency to cut sleep duration to get more work done. It's not recommended because when you're working on short sleep, your performance will reduce in quality. It will not be optimum. So don't cut on sleep unless it's absolutely necessary. Okay. It's short sleep. Choosing short sleep should not be your strategy for life.
For success.
Yeah. In fact, it's something that sets you up for failure in the long run.
Yeah.
There's this saying that goes that millionaires don't sleep enough, but billionaires do. And that is actually true. Even if you look at someone's success journey, there will be phases when you will not be able to sleep 8 hours, 9 hours. It's just not possible. But that cannot be a long-term strategy or a long-term habit that you follow. Because in the long run, it will set you up for latency in performance, in the way you think, you feel. Chronic sleep deprivation really is something everyone should avoid at any cost, because it's affecting your health in the way that it increases the risk of diabetes. The risk of diabetes significantly goes up, especially in women who are cutting on sleep. I remember I was reading the study about women who were made to cut their sleep for just 1.5 hours a night, and within a month all of them had 10% more insulin resistance by just that 1.5 hours of less sleep. Okay. And this was worse for women who were going through menopause. So the risk of diabetes significantly goes up. And this is just from like an hour and a half. So imagine if you're cutting it more, what else could be, happening to your body. Okay. So sleep deprivation in the long run is a big health risk. Also because it's directly linked to 7 of the 15 leading causes of death. And this includes the risk of diabetes, hypertension, cardiac arrest, and also accidents.
Because foggy mind,
attention span goes down. Yeah. In fact, I was reading somewhere that in the US, more people get into accidents from sleep deprivation than from being drunk. And in India, we don't have any measures to study this, but I do feel this could be true for India as well.
Maybe you will be the first one to do that study in India.
Yeah, as soon as I would love to actually know about it, but yeah. Sure. I think I'm just going to add a small snippet which I feel is very, very interesting, is that a person who is chronically sleep deprived mentally is in the same state as a person who is drunk. Because it was seen in a study that a person who's drunk enough to not be allowed to drive has a blood alcohol content of around 0.8%. Okay. And the state of his mind, his brain, was almost the same as someone who was sleep deprived, who was sleeping less than 6 hours. That's just how sleep deprivation is changing the way we function.
So a lot of us try to stay away from caffeine, right? So that it does not impact our sleep, taking decaf teas or decaf coffees. There's also saying that you should not have coffee post 3 p.m., right? So I wanted to ask that how long does caffeine stay in our system to be able to disrupt our sleep cycle?
Normally, the half-life of caffeine, which decides how long it's going to stay in the bloodstream till the point that it affects our sleep. Okay. The half-life for caffeine ranges from 6 to 12 hours. Oh. It's usually closer to the 6-hour mark than to the 12. And it also depends on the type of coffee or the source of caffeine that you're using. For a regular cup of coffee, it's closer to the 6-hour mark. So, let's say if you have coffee around 3 p.m., till 9 p.m., it will be in your bloodstream to a level that it can disrupt your sleep. But after that, its effects will start to wear off quickly. So, that's how much of a gap that should ideally be kept between a cup of coffee and your bedtime, let's say. But that's not the only factor that decides whether a cup of coffee will affect your sleep or not. How sensitive your body is to caffeine also decides that. For example, some people will have a cup of coffee and they will feel anxious or they'll feel hyper alert, and that's because their body is a bit more sensitive to caffeine. There's also a chance that they'll stay awake for longer. So how sensitive is your body to caffeine also decides how much is it going to affect your sleep. And for someone to find out whether, having caffeine or not is a good idea, is usually discovered through trial and error and observation. Other than that, it also depends on, what is the total caffeine intake for a person in a day. Usually we think that it's only tea and coffee. But there are many other sources of caffeine like chocolate, energy drinks. These are hidden sources of caffeine that a person should also be keeping in mind, especially now that we are in winters. Hot chocolate is a source, dark chocolate is a direct source. So to observe what is your total caffeine intake is a better way to judge whether coffee will also add so much of caffeine that it will disturb your sleep or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
So other than caffeine, I've seen also people being very particular about certain things so that they can fall asleep, right? There can be their furniture placement. It can be, those weight blankets that they have. Have you seen any of such habit that people think it's actually conducive to their sleep, but it's actually not impacting much?
If we talk about sleep habits, I think one very, an upcoming habit would be the use of sleep aids, such as the weighted blanket, which does help you to feel more calm. That does help. It's not, it will definitely add to your experience of sleep. When it does not really help is when the cause of your sleep problem is not physical in nature, which means that let's say you feel sleep, let's say you don't feel sleepy enough, and that happens because of a psychological cause, then that weighted blanket or that special mattress, that's not going to help at all. So, depending on what is the cause of your sleep difficulty that's preventing you from getting the best sleep experience, you need to decide whether a sleep habit will help you or not. Right? So sleep mattresses, sleep aids will help if there is a physical problem like back pain, physical discomfort that needs to be treated. That's where mattresses work very well. But if you have a health condition that prevents you from sleeping, or if you have pre-sleep anxiety, if your belief system is rewired in a way that it prevents you from sleeping easily, in that case, sleep aids are not as helpful. And some other form of sleep intervention is more required. Other than that, if we talk about general sleep habits, what we feel helps and what doesn't, this is going to sound controversial, but a very common pre-sleep routine is the practice of meditation just before going to sleep. Meditation by itself is a transformative practice. There's no denying of that fact. But everyone cannot use meditation to fall asleep easily. Because sometimes when an individual is not comfortable being alone, with her thoughts. Suddenly trying meditation just before sleep creates a state of discomfort with heightened anxiousness, heightened wakefulness, especially if you have a personality that, if you have the personality of an overthinker or an overdoer, suddenly sitting down to meditate before bedtime can bring in so many thoughts to the mind that can make you very uncomfortable. And then falling asleep becomes a challenge. So while meditation is it's extremely beneficial for your mental health, especially, usually when people start to learn it and practice it before sleep, in order to fall asleep easily, it backfires. And it creates a state of heightened anxiousness that further makes sleep tougher. So if there's anyone out there who wants to learn meditation and wants to use it to sleep better, as there are many people, a better approach to doing that is to practice it in the morning. Once you feel comfortable meditating by yourself, then start to incorporate it in the evening.
Okay.
So that you're comfortable with that experience and it doesn't hamper the process of winding down. It really calms you down before sleep. So I feel this should be a disclaimer that comes with multiple guided meditations, sleep meditations that are there on YouTube as well. They should write something like this down that if you're trying to learn this and you want to improve your sleep, an ideal time would be during the day when you have more conscious control on your thoughts and your emotional state is in a relative equilibrium.
What do you feel about sleep debt, and what are your thoughts on how people trying to catch up on their sleep over the weekend?
Sleep debt is, we'll first understand what it is so that everyone is aware. Sleep debt is the number of hours of sleep that your body wanted to sleep, but it couldn't for whatever reason. So for example, if let's say your body needed 9 hours of sleep on a day, but you only gave 7 hours of sleep. So there's a 2-hour sleep debt that is collected. And it's actually like, it gets stored in the body. The body does not forget that you didn't give it that 2 hours sleep that it required. And it keeps adding with each and every day. Such that if you're regularly cutting your sleep, all the cut sleep, the sleep that you have deprived your body of, it all gets accumulated. And then one day when you have more time to sleep, the body recovers all of that sleep. So this is why it's called as debt. The body is keeping a track of it and it's going to, get that pending sleep from you whenever that opportunity comes up.
Sure. And does oversleeping also hamper or kind of ruin our sleep cycle or maybe our health? For example, we've been speaking about sleep deprivation. What are your thoughts on oversleeping?
Oversleeping definitely has impact on health. It has its own health implications in the longer run. For example, a recent study has shown that for people who oversleep and those who undersleep, they both have similar chances of developing cardiac disorders. Chances of getting heart attacks go up, even if you're oversleeping by 2 hours or so on a
daily basis.
So this oversleeping also has its own set of consequences that come up over time. The bigger risk is in undersleeping. Usually oversleeping happens in very defined situations, like for example when a person is going through an illness or is recovering from intense physical activity or because of hormonal changes. In these cases, if oversleeping is happening for a short period of time, 10 days, 15 days, it's fine.
Okay.
If it becomes chronic, then that's a health concern that a doctor needs to look into. And yeah, so most cases oversleeping in the short term is okay. It's probably because of sleep debt that gets built up. Majorly, it's undersleeping that shows up faster.
Okay.
But at the same time, both have their implications.
Do sound frequencies like sound baths or binaural beats, do they help? Like, how do they calm your mind, and how do they help to have a better sleep?
They definitely add to a process that already happens within the brain. So, binaural beats, the frequencies that come from sound, Tibetan bowl sound meditation, they are similar to what the brain also creates. So a lot of meditations that are available on YouTube, they have alpha waves, beta waves being played. If we look into the brain and the different stages of the sleep cycle, the brain is also creating these waves. Right? So when we are in the lighter stages of sleep, that's when alpha waves are being produced. Okay? So how that happens is when our body is in the light stage of sleep, neurons, which are cells of the brain basically, neurons are interacting with each other. When neurons interact, electricity is created, and when this electricity is studied using an EEG, EEG is this device that's clipped to the brain. When it's studied on the screen of the EEG, it's seen that the waves of that energy, that electricity, they are alpha waves. So, like that, during different stages of sleep, different types of waves are produced. Light sleep has alpha waves, which are, I think, around some specific frequency, 8 to 13 hertz or something like that. And then slowly after light sleep, we come to deep sleep. Deep sleep has a specific wave frequency that's slower. That's also why we call deep sleep as the slow wave state, because frequency drops, you make bigger waves on the EEG, and then comes REM sleep. Now REM sleep, suddenly the frequency goes up. So different frequencies are produced by the brain at night. When somebody plays a meditation with the same frequency, and that's detected by the brain tries to support this external frequency as well.
Okay.
And this happens by itself. We still don't know how the brain is doing that. But let's say if you're sleeping and you are playing alpha waves on a track through binaural beats, the brain will detect the alpha waves coming from outside.
And it will automatically tune itself.
Yes, and it will also increase the volume of alpha waves it's generating to as a response to what's coming from outside. So that's also how these alpha waves and other types of waves are used to create a state of clarity, creativity. This is how the concept of using waves for meditation has also come about, because it prompts the brain to also generate more of these waves.
So which wave, which particular frequency should people tune into if they want to get into the sleep? What would be more helpful?
If someone wants to get into sleep, it's recommended to go for alpha waves.
Okay.
Because alpha waves are similar to what the brain produces during wakefulness and light sleep. During that transition, it's majorly alpha waves. So alpha waves could be helpful in getting into sleep. And even after using, these frequencies, it's going to be a subjective experience. It's not everyone's cup of tea. Some people might not find these frequencies comfortable. Some might, be more receptive to it. So it's going to be subjective, but if someone tries it out, it can help with sleep onset, help you to enter into sleep more easily, even stay asleep for longer in some cases. And also, because a component of these sounds, these waves, has has an element of white noise to it. So if you listen to any kind of meditation, which is primarily, alpha waves or beta waves, at the back there is a staticky sound, which is called as white noise. So white noise independently has a calming effect. And that too helps a lot of people to, go to sleep, feel relaxed. So all in all, it's a great idea to try it out and see how you feel about it and then decide for yourself.
A lot of us might be struggling to sleep because we have a very active nervous system, right? Would you like to recommend any breath work that can calm down the nervous system, hence also helping people to go to sleep easily?
Definitely. A lot of breathwork practices, pranayama practices from yoga have a direct impact on calming the nervous system down, making sure that the parasympathetic nervous system becomes dominant, which is crucial for the body to enter into sleep. 4:7:8 breath. This is a breathwork practice that helps a lot of people to reduce mental activity and build a better connection with breath itself. When your connection with your breath is better, you have more control on it. That's how you can also connect better with your mind. So 4:7:8 is beneficial over there. Other than that, there is box breathing. Box breathing has been an age-old practice from US veterans to, even yogis doing it in yoga as samavritti pranayam. Box breathing is a great place to get control on your breathing first, and then that eventually leads to a calmer state of mind by itself. So, as a beginner, someone who's not into breathwork or into yoga, these could be simpler forms to start off with. And the best way to really get the benefit out of them is to practice them somewhere away from your bed. Most of the times we end up doing breathwork sitting in the bed. Almost all of us do that. But if you want to add another layer of sleep hygiene, it's better to sit somewhere else. And in the longer run, that's a sleep hygiene measure that pays off significantly if someone sticks to it.
How's 4-7-8 done?
If you want to practice it, it's a 3-step process. You inhale for 4 counts, hold the breath for 7 counts, and exhale for 8 counts. How long your counts are going to be is subjective for everyone. If you're just starting off, it's better to do it with a guided track at the back. That keeps it uniform and keeps it easier for you. And see how you feel after doing it, and then decide whether you want to continue with it or not.
Sure. Last question, and I think I would want to end it with grounding. So, what do you feel like as a sleep coach? How important is grounding or being connected to Mother Earth, and what grounding practice can one do or integrate in their day-to-day life so that going to sleep becomes effortless? And what's the connection of grounding and sleep?
I think on an energetic level, the more we ground ourselves, which means that we connect with the energy of the earth, the calmer we get. That's in effect everyone who does grounding in different ways would say. There are many ways to practice grounding. For example, some people like to walk barefoot on the earth. That helps them to feel mentally more centered. Other ways of grounding could be to simply lie down on the floor. Try to stay there and take deep breaths. Just experience it for yourself. For a lot of people, that is also grounding. Other people like to do yoga poses, asanas, that can connect their energy to that of the earth. So many ways of grounding. What works very well with respect to sleep, that's also good for grounding, is restorative yoga. Practicing yin yoga, restorative yoga is also an easy way of grounding yourself, such that you can fall asleep easily.
So this is right before sleep that you do restorative yoga?
Can be done as long as you are on an empty stomach.
Right.
And if you do it for a while, you can see that it really helps you in physically winding down, mentally winding down, and letting go of thoughts and emotions that you've collected for a while. So that process gets easier if you do restorative yoga. And how would that be related to sleep specifically? How is grounding related to sleep? I'm not sure of the direct relation, but what I do know is that grounding will create a state, an inner state that allows for sleep to enter more easily. A lot of times grounding also helps in balancing masculine and feminine energy. During the day, we want to be in our masculine energy for, getting things done. But during the night, we want our feminine energy to be dominant, and we want to be in touch with it. Because that is in charge of sleep, restoration, nurturing. So for that purpose also, when you pick up a grounding activity like restorative yoga, that's also helping you to balance your yin and your yang, so that, your overall health also improves.
Any last wisdom words for the audience that you'd like to share?
If you are trying to improve your sleep, irrespective of what is your sleep difficulty, first try to understand yourself as a person and try to investigate or try to be curious about your approach to sleep. Don't follow what you are reading on Google, because it's not tailored advice. Instead, try to think of what are you doing for your sleep and how is that helping? Is that helping or is that not helping? So, self-exploration of yourself as a sleeper, as a person who sleeps, is going to give you more answers than anyone out there.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Chhavi. This has been an eye-opening podcast on sleep. I think there were so many pointers that you shared, which I don't think many of people knew that how they're connected, right? And personally, there were so many takeaways from me that I would want to incorporate into my life and see my quality of sleep getting better. So thank you so much for sharing all the knowledge, your experience with your clients and all the case studies that you have done so far and sharing it with us and the audience. It truly, truly has been a very insightful podcast, and I wish you all the best for all the work that you're doing. And I just hope that you keep continuing on this path and help India sleep better.
Thank you, Natasha. It's been a wonderful time addressing these questions that I'm sure are going to help a lot of people out there.
Thank you. And to all of you, thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. If you really loved it, if you felt that you did find some answers to your struggles, when it comes to sleeping, please don't forget to like, subscribe and share. If you know anyone who's been actually having trouble sleeping, please do share it with them. And we will be back with another interesting episode next time. Till then, please take care. Thank you.